Hi, I'm Stephanie Valinsky, Deputy Director at the Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Professionalism. Welcome to Reimagining Law. I'm joined today by Emelia Carroll, staff attorney, and Emma Kunin, social worker, both from Cabrini Green Legal Aid. They work in a collaborative, interdisciplinary model of legal services and social services to bring about the best outcome for clients. Emelia and Emma, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Stephanie.
Sure.
Happy to be here.
So, Emelia, why don't we start with you? What is holistic justice, and can you, kind of walk me through what that looks like in a case?
For coming from the perspective of somebody who used to work in a more of a public defender's office setting, the courtroom is a space that's supposed to be meting out justice, and oftentimes, somebody who's charged with a crime and what they did and who they are is presented to the court through the narrative or through the lens of the police report and any other evidence, but it's primarily going to be from what the police gathered in their investigation. And then that's really the prosecutor's conception of who that person is. And then they make their decisions within their discretion based on that narrative. And then the judge, hears bits and pieces at different stages of what those facts are. That's again driven by the police report. And it is not really a holistic form of justice because it's looking at a single incident through a single lens. So the concept of holistic justice broadens that the perspective on this human being, and all human beings deserve to be understood through many different perspectives. And as we are all complex people, we deserve to be understood as complex people. People deserve to have their context heard and understood, their community context as well as their individual context, their personal histories, their traumas, and then what their aspirations are as well looking forward. And all of that, all the pieces of who they are that's connected to history and is connected to community and connected to all kinds of forces in our society, that deserves to be part of what's considered in that narrative. So it's not just the police arrest report.
Okay. Oh, no, very interesting. So then when you do talk with the prosecutor, how then do you bring about that kind of holistic service?
So the service, for one thing, when it comes to the holistic service to our client, it's not just me giving them legal advice on, what are your charges? What are the elements if we went to trial? What are the potential penalties? What are the potential collateral consequences? It's not just that, but it's also understanding about what was really the root cause of why they have been charged. And basically trying to address those needs in a bigger way. And then when it comes to translating that to engaging with the prosecution about that, sometimes it's in the form of a long conversation. Sometimes it's in the form of really long letters from me and myself and from Emma. Oftentimes it's community testimonials from the community members in my clients' lives. Sometimes it's, a documentary that we put together where we interview people in our clients' lives and our clients to tell their story so that their voice is heard. Sometimes it's asking a client who's musically inclined to make a song about their experience, and then that's shared with the prosecutor. So it's really the holistic service is really for our client. And then we also try to find creative ways to present that fuller picture to the prosecutor.
Okay. And Emma, how have you seen this work and using this holistic model affect the outcome for a client?
I've definitely seen it improve client outcomes. So with holistic justice, it's a client-centered approach. So we're helping the individual navigate the legal system, but we're also, like Emelia said, we're trying to address the root causes of the issue. So if the client has instability in areas of their life, like employment, mental health, they can't pay their rent or they don't have health care. We are trying to help them gain support and understand that context and background of the problem so they can overcome it and move on. And that's how we develop their treatment plans. So it's not just about addressing those goals, but reducing recidivism in the end. We address that by, working with what barriers does the client face and how do we overcome those barriers for success.
Okay. And would you say there's comparisons to this model, and the model that we're starting to see being implemented by police departments, bringing in a social worker when an officer does a call?
Most people's involvement in the criminal system starts with a police encounter. And so rather than having to push off actors in the system finally getting that broader context of what's happening to a person, rather than pushing that off until they've already been, arrested, sat in jail, maybe bonded out, maybe not, been indicted, been arraigned, and then finally have an opportunity for defense counsel to work and social work to talk to the prosecutor, to be able to have a social work perspective immediately would probably, and have it be taken seriously, would probably change, how often police are choosing to make arrests, what kind of charges they're choosing to use as their explanation for the arrest. And would also, as I said before, about the narrative that gets presented initially to the courts, it would probably change what that narrative is. So it would probably change a lot and be more efficient ultimately, as well as just being more humane.
Okay. And Emelia, why do you think then attorneys should think about using this holistic model in their work?
We lawyers, we have a certain expertise, but a lot of times because we're actors in a court system and we want to have our training really is to focus on legal issues and legal outcomes, we have blind spots. And to have a teammate that has a different training and can see different issues that might be under the surface, it's invaluable. I mean, I can think of an example where when I'm trying to find out why a client, for example, seems to be repeatedly violating their curfew, which is a condition of their bond. And I'm trying to have conversations about why this is happening. And I'm hitting communication barriers with my client. There are all kinds of different reasons why we might be having those communication barriers. And to be able to talk to Emma and, she's suddenly able to illuminate, well, there might be, you're probably not thinking, Emelia, about the different ways that poverty creates barriers for people and that their location tied to that and the logistical problems that causes for somebody that might lead to curfew violations. And so her perspective, it's an answer to questions that I often have that I just don't have the training to think about.
And Emma, as a social worker, how does working with attorneys impact your work?
Just to piggyback off that, we do a biological psychosocial assessment to assess the client at intake and evaluate them. And that shows us, what relevant factors might be contributing to the client's history and mental state. We know that a third of the Cook County jail and prison populations, those residents do have mental health diagnoses or co-occurring disorders, whether it's a mental health diagnosis and a substance use diagnosis. So, we work along with the attorneys to address the root causes, and oftentimes the root causes of criminal justice involvement do have to do with mental health. My goal in the end is to reduce recidivism for, vulnerable people, vulnerable populations, and working with attorneys allows us to actually communicate with the court and get those legal outcomes and advocacy that we strive for in reducing recidivism.
All right. Well, thank you. Do you have anything else to add?
I would just add that, generally speaking, we oftentimes as attorneys, I think that even when we get good outcomes, we do a disservice to our clients if they come out of our representation of them, and they're not sort of any better off or any less likely to be found in a similar situation than they were when we started with them. I think that to truly take seriously, as Emma said, like a client-centered approach is not to sort of count our victories in some kind of like a legal sense, but really pay attention to our clients as people. And so I think that that's something to consider, even if you don't have the bandwidth to work with a social worker, to just at least start thinking about ways to incorporate that more human perspective, I think is something we should all be doing.
All right. Well, thank you for giving us a lot to think about today. And thank you both for joining me. Please go ahead and like and share this video and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on new episodes. Information on how to stay connected with both the Commission and Cabrini Green Legal Aid is in the notes. Thank you so much for watching, and stay well.